Hey, twirly gig.
Oh, hey. Welcome back, folks.
Welcome back. I've been spinning in my chair for 30 seconds during the break.
It's awesome. My head feels like it wants to explode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What is Doug Reading? So you may be watching on YouTube. You may be watching on Facebook. We like the people on YouTube. We don't like the people on Facebook. What do you like the people? Yeah. Thumbs down.
Well,
just kidding. We love you all. I'm just kidding. I shouldn't have said that. People will start dropping. No, we love you all. Thank you so much for being here. We've got my good buddy Doug Smythe here, who's like this mad scientist, wild and crazy guy. So we always catch up on what he's reading this week because he's reading weird stuff all the time. Yes. And of course, me, I'm the runner of Open Minds TV, which is where this is showing on Facebook or YouTube. And I do want to say, if you're joining on YouTube, please do subscribe by hitting the subscribe button that's down there somewhere. And then you can hit the little belly thingy too to let you know when a new video comes up. But also, I do have a subscription service on YouTube. Please do join that because you're going to get some amazing interviews, including Chris Mellon, who used to be the Assistant Deputy Secretary of Intelligence. Also, he was on the staff director for the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. He essentially got the Senate to pay attention to UFOs and ask for UFO inquiry. So we've been talking about that. John Greenwald of the Black Vault. I've been in a vicious battle with this guy for the last couple of years, but we've made up and we're friends again. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I think on my side, I was being pretty nice, but oh well. Anyways, we talk a little bit about that in our 2-hour interview talking about the New York Times. He's an excellent researcher, and I've always said that, even when he was calling me bad name. But I've got all kinds of people. Brian Bender of Politico, and of these interviews, Brian Bender of Politico, who helped write one of the stories that broke the whole UFO thing of the Pentagon Project, and other stories. Nobody else has interviews with him. Nobody else has interviews with Chris Mellon. Only Open Minds, because we're so well known over the decades.
Yeah, and we're awesome.
Awesome. But Doug's pretty awesome too.
Totally humble.
Completely humble.
And modest.
Doug's pretty awesome too. So someone's asking what's up with the New York Times articles on UFOs. That's not really what this show is about. This isn't a UFO show. This is where we talk about the weird stuff that Doug comes across. We do talk about UFOs a bit here, and maybe if Doug wants, he can share his opinion. However, that show I was just talking about with John Greenwald, we talk about that at length. So if you join on YouTube, you could go watch that video right now, or you could go to my Patreon. Let's say you like podcasts. Go to my Patreon. You'll get an RSS feed you can plug into your podcast device or program, and then it'll download the thing. So you can pay a lot less just to get the audio, or subscribe here and watch the videos. And then tomorrow, Friday, I'll be doing another live show right here, same place, same channels, Facebook and YouTube. And that's kind of my Friday news roundup where I talk about the news of the week, and I'll talk more about the New York Times article there. But I guess since this is the only time we have you with us, Doug, do you have any thoughts
on
the New York Times articles that have come out lately on UFOs?
I've been so busy that I'm so
what have you been busy with? Share that. Probably cool stuff.
Yeah, I have a bunch of releases coming up. I've been reworking a scent called Immortal Peach. You can imagine what that smells like. But there's that. We just got a lot going on at the shop right now in the lab, and it's just busy. COVID is really it's nuts how much our business has increased. It really is. It turns out making soap for a pandemic was the best business decision I ever could have made. But yeah, so just been really busy there, and I haven't really had a chance to do that. I've been also doing other things too, like kayaking and studying and stuff like that. I don't have time for a lot of this stuff. Right. However, I have been seeing about the New York Times. I saw mentions by MUFON made a mention of it. I think it was Stacy actually. I've seen a couple of your things, but I mean, I haven't haven't taken a deep dive is what it all comes down to. When I first saw the headlines, I was just like, oh, they're re-releasing something from 2 years ago. It wasn't really clear what was going on with that to me by the headlines alone. Because some people are seeing this for the first time, you know?
Yeah. But I'm concerned for the people seeing it for the first time because it wasn't their best work, I would say. People are chiming in and saying they were disappointed with the article, that they messed it up and stuff like that. And that's kind of along the lines of what I've been saying and John and I talked about too. So I'll be writing some more articles, though, in the next few days to kind of clarify things. And of course, I'm a Mr. Silver Lining type of guy. So looking for what can we pull out of this data that is significant, that just kind of is getting lost in the message and the noise and stuff. And I really think that these articles are so Frankenstein. They're trying to do so much that they're really losing the message, and it's hard to understand what are they trying to tell us, because the articles are just, I don't know, it is
regurgitated. And yeah, I mean, I don't know who the audience is they're pitching this to. I mean, again,
that's a good question too, because that's a good question too. So we'll get into more of that tomorrow with probably Martin Willis on the Friday show. But
unless he can't make it, then I'll be there.
Okay, you'll be there if he can't make it?
Of course, I'm always there.
I'll take you up on that.
If they can't make it.
So, Dirk Bonestill has a question for you, Doug. If you wear a hat all the time, does it collect head cheese? I'm not sure what that is.
Head cheese. I think that's a real thing, actually.
Is it? That sounds disgusting.
Yeah, it does. It does.
But you're not familiar with what it is.
Today, we are going to be, honestly, this program is pretty much, it's under the guise of what Doug's reading this week, but that's pretty much a launch pad for endless conversation, as we've proven time and time again. And so to begin, to set up that launch pad for Alejandro to bounce on, we are looking this week at a really cool book, and it's not really a book, actually. It's more of a guide. It's called How to Read Churches. Now, there's nothing religious about this book. I mean, I'm sure there are elements of religion in here, but it's really nonpartisan in that regard. But it's pretty much a guide to the architecture of churches. Yes, they really are telling you something. They're telling a story. And anyone that's taken an art history course, even Art History 101, will know that. In fact, you've touched upon some of the elements in this book. But so again, it's like a guide. I was supposed to be heading to Europe this last couple months back, and I was going to be doing the Camino de Santiago, the Pilgrim Trail, and I was going to be stopping along the way, visiting all these different ancient cathedrals, which I think are so cool. And I wanted to really, dig into them, see what they were trying to convey, what they were trying to say, what messages were hidden there, maybe like in René Lachateau in France. That's anyone who knows what I'm talking about there, it's a very Dan Brown kind of church. And so I thought this would be something cool to pick up and something I could carry in my backpack. However, it is still, it's kind of a beefy little book. It's got some weight to it, but it is a guide through illustration that breaks down and defines all these different design elements in different churches that you will see used again and again in the designs of these churches. Really neat stuff. I mean, any of you who grew up in the 80s like I did, maybe remember hearing the old, the tales about statues. I mean, statues are the talk of the town right now, right? Everyone's talking about statues. I don't know if you remember hearing this, Alejandro, but different statues involving horses, equestrian statues. There was always this, like, if the legs on the front, I could be getting this wrong, but if the front legs are up, that means the person on the horse died in battle. If the right one's down, that means they were wounded. Yeah, I heard about this for years. There's a horse code. Turns out there's not. I did not know that. It's not true. I mean, this is something that was talked, again, in the 80s. We used to talk about this all the time. I mean, thanks to the internet, we know this is now not true. But like that was supposed to be, this is. Churches are designed by Masons for you to decode for the most part. I mean, there's a lot.
I'm going to tangent for a sec, if that's okay.
Do it.
I just want to share. I did some research on head cheese, and I want to share with people what I found. So this is it right here. And what happens is when you're wearing a hat, this will accumulate under your hat if you wear one too long. It's very disgusting.
I don't think that's head
Just
cheese.
kidding.
That's tongue loaf.
No, this is head cheese. It's some sort
Is
of
it head-
cheese they make in England or something with a bunch of crap in it, and it looks
Yeah.
absolutely disgusting.
Look up tongue loaf. I used to work in a deli. It was my
Ooh.
first job, and that was tongues, cow tongues in this gelatinous material that you would slice up like, and it looked a lot like that. Tongue loaf. Old people love it. Anyways, so yes, how to read churches, folks.
Yes.
And, if you've read Pillars of the Earth, you'll enjoy this book as well. Pillars of the Earth is a great read. It's a wonderful story, but it digs into the architecture of churches too, all along the way. So if you read them both together or use it supplementally with that book, Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, Follet. This will, I think, it'll really just make for a better experience. Again, a deep dive into the subject and topic of decoding churches.
So let's get into this, because actually I do love this topic. I love architecture, and of course there's the flying buttresses and all that kind of stuff. That's the terminology that I know about church building. But there's also, I do know that the churches use like the Fibonacci sequence and stuff like
Golden
that.
ratio. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the golden ratio. So get into that. What are some of the sort of things they're trying to tell us? And I would imagine some of these are kind of esoteric ideas.
Well, yeah, a lot of it is esoteric ideas. A lot of it's based, some of the early stuff is based on the Temple of Solomon, and that comes straight out of Freemasonry concepts. So you'll find that in there too. You'll find stories of like divinity. You'll find the apocryphal also, books that didn't make their way into the Bible as we know it. You'll find elements of that in there because, hundreds of years ago, there was many different factions to Christianity, more so than what we know now, being born again, Baptist, Catholic. There was hundreds, and they were all arguing. They all had different books. They were all writing different books. They were all claiming to be different people. And so a lot of these factions were also, Masons as well. And they were going out there and they're encoding their belief systems into the architectural design of these churches to be, understood by other Masons or just other people hip to what they were looking for or who had eyes to see in that way. And again, René Lachateau is a fine example of that, the church there. But yeah, so let's see what we got here. Like hidden doors or whatnot, or for example, the rod. Now the rod is used in building churches back in the day. It's a system of measurement, and but the rod, it could be any size really. I mean, the standard size nowadays I think is like 16.5 meters. However, back then, 500 years ago, they had different rod sizes they were working with. So, but the entire measurement and ratio of the church was based on whatever this rod size was. So if you lost the rod during the course of this, or didn't know what you were doing, you could easily screw this up. But I mean, it's just so. I mean, stuff like that is. I find it very interesting that they were using. I'm sorry.
Like, what were the type of things maybe they were trying to say? Were they trying to say, baby Jesus is cool, or the end of the world is nigh? Some people are mentioning like the Rosicrucians, which is cool because when you see that cross, that the Rosy Cross, the Rosicrucians before the Templars, I believe the Templars came from the Rosy Cross.
Well, there's a lot.
Isn't that the way it is?
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of mythology around the Rosicrucians too. They come off a lot older than what they actually are, and I think a lot of it was just to provide credibility for other claims made. However, that's I mean, my mind's not completely closed to any other ideas in regards to that. But yeah, there's stuff like that. There's also the basic, heaven and hell. You greeted at the front door with visions of heaven and visions of hell, typically. So they want you to make you think about stuff like that, subconsciously. Also, just the grandiose layout of the church in itself is to, to convey a certain feeling, psychologically as you walk into this place, the amount of windows it has. And this changed over time as building became better and better, or just the ideas of what you couldn't do with a math got better. There was a lot of influence from like arabesque influence and whatnot too. They were way ahead of us, if you ask me. And this was coming out of like southern Spain at the time when it comes to church design and whatnot, and cathedral design. And so you see a lot of that opening up, and you can tell, typically by the shape and design of the church. I'm trying to find an example here, what period they're from, but a lot of them are laid out in the shape of a cross. Let's see if I can find an example.
Is there any sort of paranormal statement they're making in there?
Well, I mean, religion in itself is paranormal.
True.
But see, there's a ground layout right there. But that's why I always love it when religious people freak out about ghosts and stuff like that. And it's like, well, religion in itself is paranormal. I mean, if you believe in one, you got to believe in the other.
That reminds me. In fact, I'm going to be doing a lecture here on YouTube. So pay attention, everybody. I'm going to do a free lecture as opposed to putting it on the Rojas reports, because I think it's important. Because right now, one of the things when we talked about the New York Times article is that they're saying that essentially implying that the government has something to do with, maybe retrieve some crashed UFOs or something like that. And if that's the case, the big question for many people is, there's been this assumption, and especially SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, scientists that are involved with that, like Seth Shostak and others, have always said, religions are going to freak out, especially the Christians. And that's kind of been the rule of thumb, that what has been in people feel is intuitively obvious. Religions are screwed if we find out there are other intelligent civilizations. So I did kind of a deep dive and created a lecture on this, and I found that that's not true at all. In fact, I even found some at least one inventory that was done, a psychological inventory, which is kind of a more professional science-based survey some of this, and the findings were really good. But this was inspired by what you were just saying. So I knew this guy who was an editor for a publisher for Christian books, and he had the house he grew up in, his mom believed was haunted. And essentially him and the family said, "Mom, you're crazy." They never bought it. They never had their own paranormal experience, I guess. Well, his parents pass away. He inherits the house and wants to keep it. He loves his parents and childhood, and he wanted his kids to grow up there as well. So, but when they moved in, they started having paranormal experiences. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't believe in ghosts, but we're having these ghostly experiences." But his first question is, am I supposed to believe in ghosts? And he wrote a book about this experience, about him doing research to find out, am I supposed to believe in ghosts as a Christian? And I think he was Roman Catholic. And of course, like you're saying, yes, you are. I mean, it's part of the whole religion going back. So I did the kind of same thing. Is
the Holy Ghost? I mean, come on.
For you guys to believe in aliens. Yeah, so that's my talk. And essentially, I wanted to help people. If people start freaking out, oh my gosh, are there aliens? What is it, and what am I supposed to believe as far as my religion? And hopefully, if people do have those issues, it'll calm them a bit. So
you're a buffer.
I'll be doing that lecture. What's that?
You're a buffer.
So I'll be doing that in the next week.
When it comes to him suddenly experiencing paranormal activity, that goes back to our conversation last week with synchronistic events. Mm-hmm. He's just reflecting; it's bouncing back off, out of him back onto him. He's
maybe
projecting himself.
I mean, he was not open to it at all. That's what's really interesting. But like you said, he did have it, at least in his subconscious, that his mom felt the house was haunted. But he didn't believe that to be the case at all. And if you read the book, he really fought that idea.
So
what's interesting.
Where did he end up in all this?
Oh, that it's okay to believe it, and his house is haunted. That's where he ended up, and that, and I think, I don't remember what he did. I don't think he sold the house. I think they kept it. But he also, it was interesting because then he felt sad. He felt sad that they would make fun of their mom, when they were younger, when all along he feels that she was right, that the house was haunted. So it's kind of a heartwarming in that sense, where he has this new appreciation for his mom, and maybe she's not as crazy as I thought or eccentric, and it was okay for her to kind of be like that, as
like a
opposed
resolution.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And we all kind of feel that way, right? Because our parents, there's times we roll our eyes and things they do.
My
and then
mom's
later
my
on.
mom's definitely she's seen some weird stuff, and we
Oh,
all look at her like
really?
she's nuts. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But, also with religion being paranormal, it really is. It's these are paranormal organizations. That really, if you look up the definition of a religion, it's a group of people who subscribe supernatural forces. They subscribe things they don't know why
Can't
things
see.
are the way they are to supernatural forces.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, everything about
Mhm.
it. I mean, Christianity itself is, I mean, you're eating the flesh of a god, you're drinking his blood. I mean, there's a lot of like, if you just distill it down to like the basic tenets, that's what's going on. I mean, like you
Mhm.
grow up in it, you don't notice how weird it is, but when you're hearing about this for the first time, again, like aliens land on the planet and they're learning about Christianity for the first time, or any religion, they're just like, all they're hearing is the basic description you're giving them. And then, we do communion, and then we, I mean, all these loaded words that we just don't, you're wearing, and if Christ was around today and put to death, we'd be wearing a little electric chairs around our neck, 50 years from now. So, I mean, this is what an outsider would see. So, I mean, it's very paranormal.
I wasn't following on the electric chair thing.
Well, I mean, rather than a crucifix.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you put the death on the
that's
electric chair
funny.
or whatever, I mean, like, what's the difference?
Well, that's the other part of my talk too, is the end part is, and I think this is kind of a danger. It's kind of a warning, but kind of, in that I'm also saying in the last part of my lecture is that there also have been a new religion spawned because of the belief in UFOs and aliens. And there have been some new religions. Scientology has this in their belief system, but other religions do.
Oh yeah, what was the Hale-Bopp one? The Hale-Bopp one,
Yeah.
in the 90s.
Now that's an example of a bad situation, but there are also ones that I would argue that are kind of nicer, more inclusive. They're kind of more modern thought. So
spiritual.
It's kind of like, the alien part is kind of the impetus to creating a new religion, and then the tenets of the new religion are more along the lines of modern new agey spiritualist type of ideas, which makes sense because it's just an evolution, kind of like you're talking about,
kind of. But New Age, if you really get down to the basics of New Age, it's all those concepts are actually old age. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but some of it's new. So a lot of people are commenting in here that we'll take some questions. The person who's asking, but a lot of people are commenting on here that religion was used for control, which is no doubt the case. Whereas
politics, you can't get them with politics, you get them with religion.
One of the tenets with the newer ones is that all religions are okay, all religions are right, and very inclusive. They don't, like for instance, take any old time religion. I was Roman Catholic growing up. Well, if you're not Roman Catholic, you're going to hell, is what we believe.
Everyone thinks their religion's the right one. Everyone wants to own God.
And the newer ones are more like, it's okay, you're not going to go to hell if you're not part of our religion, as long as you have a good heart and stuff, which is kind of, I think, kind of a
but you're going to be the janitor of heaven, though.
yeah, but you will be the janitor.
But you'll be working.
But it's more modern, inclusive, which kind of comes from the New Age universalist type of ideas,
right?
Which is nice,
it's more philosophical, I guess, in that rather than religious. So, what was the question?
Let's see. Questions. Head on a pike medallion. That's true. Ad Astra said.
Yeah, head on up. It could have been. If that's how it happened. If that's how it went down, that's what you'd be wearing around your neck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, going by that logic.
But yes, someone asked if we'll take questions, and they want to ask Doug some questions. Please do. Ask your questions. Now I want one, Ad Astra saying. I think he's saying he wants a
pike,
a pendant that is an electric chair. Oh, great. Here comes some dude with a blower. Anyway, the point being that's what's really interesting. I think that these new religions popping up, and they're mostly UFO alien kind of related if you look at, what is considered a new religion. And what I'm talking about is kind of going off for a period of time. So for instance, Mormonism is kind of a new religion, right? It's not that old, but it's hundreds of years rather than thousands of years.
A little over 100 years, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah, so not that old.
Yeah, and so that's still a cult. After it, gets to about 200, 300 years, then it's a religion, right? That's how it typically works. Because even Christianity was a cult back in the day. It was freaking people out.
So here's a question, and I'm not sure that. So here's what they say, and we'll see what you think of it. Does Douglas acknowledge that most of the churches he is referring to were just leftover architecture prior to the cataclysms? Most can't even be replicated with such precision today.
Are we talking about temples or churches? Because a lot of churches and cathedrals were built on the foundations of ancient temples, if that's what you mean. And yes, I totally. I mean that may have to do with ley lines as well, if you really want to get into it. But or centers of energy. But yeah, those spaces, those sacred spaces, were recycled from paganism to early Christianity to whatever. I mean, I would
say, though, although the last part, that they could not be replicated with such precision, I completely disagree with that. I think the methods that we use to build things are different than they were back in the past, but we could definitely do it again if we wanted to. And I kind of feel it's unfortunate that we don't do it anymore.
There are some.
So you think there are some things we couldn't do again?
Yes.
Really? Like what?
Like the base of the Temple of Athena. We don't even. Some of these rocks are tons and tons and tons. We don't know how they did it. We don't know how we would lift them there. There are things that are very confusing. And there's a lot that was lost as well. A lot of technology. I know that's so easy to say, but even the concrete the Romans I think the Romans were using, we lost that concrete technology for years. We weren't using and creating concrete until our modern century, last century or 2 centuries ago, we started creating. We figured it out again. But there's so much knowledge lost and regained, and the Dark Ages really just set us back so far. It's ridiculous
because of religion. The Dark Ages were all brought on by religion.
Religion definitely was a strong.
People weren't. It wasn't legal to learn. To go to school unless you were most people weren't allowed to go to school and learn how to read and write and things like that. And of course we went backwards. Some may argue that we've been eviscerating public education to a degree that we're almost kind of in a mini Dark Ages. We've gone.
When Flatland pops up again, when Flatland becomes, Flat Earth becomes popular again, it's like, hello. Here we are again, and we're just holding ourselves. Look at. Religion is in control of the governments now. That's what's making the choice. A lot of it is making the choices. So it's it's kind of scary. There should be a separation of that, But
yeah, I agree. And I want to clarify. I didn't mean ancient temples. I meant churches. Because I would agree, like what you're saying. There are some ancient temples where. It seems as though it'd be very difficult for us to recreate them. Some Egyptian, some Roman, some Peruvian. So that is
the amount of distance that these things were quarried from. It's amazing. It's baffling. All we can do is speculate, and that's scary.
Yeah, it is it's really weird. So are they lost technologies? Of course, our good buddy Giorgio would say, let's see if I can do some Giorgio hair. My hair's kind of crazy today.
No,
you want to do some? Let's do Georgie.
Aliens.
We're not saying it's aliens.
But anyway, that's you got it. Actually, that looks good.
Really? Did it?
That could be your new thing. Yeah. You're like an elder statesman, Giorgio.
So, that stuff's weird. Is it aliens? Is it technology we lost? Is it,
I just think that this isn't the first time the room has been for rent when it comes to our civilization. I think it's been rented out many times before. So we're just seeing bits and pieces of what came way before us, pre-antediluvian times, so on and so forth, and beyond. but we just can't accept that because of religion most of the time. I mean, but I mean, there's technology missing. You see the markings on these in the stonework that's being dug up every day, or that we've been looking at for years. There's markings on that look like machine markings. Doesn't mean it is, but it does. You have to.
It's a mystery. There are certainly mysteries when it comes to ancient aliens. Now, Dirk Bonesteel.
I'm not talking about ancient aliens. I'm talking about, we don't give mankind enough credit. I think we always jump to aliens first, and it's like, no, it was us.
Now I totally agree with that, and there are a lot of people, and I do agree with this, and I know this might upset and trigger some people, but that's kind of fun to trigger people.
It puts the FU in fun.
Yeah, which is that there's been a lot of talk that there's a lot of racist kind of undertones to ancient aliens, and I totally agree with that. This idea that, these ancient people, these ancient brown people couldn't have done this, or they couldn't have done that. And even further, when you get into some of these bodies that are being dug up in the Atacama,
redheaded giant,
people are saying they're aliens and things like this. And these are actual, people, native people, burial grounds. And that's really unfortunate. So I agree with you on that. However, Dirk Bonesteel actually, kind of to your point, made the point that there were a lot of slaves back then too. Like, you would have thousands and thousands of people, so you could get a lot more done with slaves.
Yeah.
But Dirk Bonesteel, this is what I was saying. He brought up Giorgio, and he doesn't like Giorgio. And I would like to hear his criticism. So please type that, and we'll talk about that. Another person, Forever Conscious Research Channel, says, why are we mixing aliens into this? And of course, we aren't.
Because Christ was an alien. Don't you get it?
Yeah. Some people believe that. But Ancient Aliens, of course, is a very popular show. And I think so much so that this conversation, aliens, inevitably comes up, right?
It's steeped into it, I mean, it's on my cup. I mean, come on. This was the trigger right here. Yes, Ancient Aliens is a very popular show, but I think everyone always easily jumps to alien technology and whatnot when I think we're big in that. And someone brings up Graham Hancock, Rodrigo. Hey, Rodrigo. Yes, Graham Hancock is awesome. Fingerprints of the Gods. I mean, he digs deep, and he does it so intelligently. Like, to see him speak is just, it's like watching Professor. He's so well spoken.
Graham Hancock.
Yes, yeah, we saw him in the bookshop last year.
I mean, I think he makes a few leaps of logic, especially when he gets into his conclusions. Assuming he makes assumptions in his conclusions, I feel, suggesting, things that you disagreed with, like mysteries where maybe it's not so mysterious. But I think he is really good at, like, for instance, saying, this art on the other side of the world is exactly like this art, that's over here. I don't agree always. People draw stylistic kind of caricatures of animals and humans all the time. That doesn't mean
spirals and whatnot. Yeah, when people make those connections. Yeah, I get that. There are some things that are very human, some designs and whatnot that are very just human to do. When you stick your finger in the ground and start doing a spiral, you don't need to know anyone across the planet to be able to do the same thing. There's no relation there. The only relation is that another human did it, and it's very human to do, I think.
Right.
I see what you're saying in that way. And vases as well. There's only so many ways to skin a cat, I guess, or build a mousetrap.
Right. But that's like a little bit of criticism, my little areas of disagreement, whereas I agree he reveals a lot of really cool stuff. His research is great. Yeah. And he does reveal a lot of
dig
cool
deep stuff. I mean, I've always liked him. I mean, there's some stuff on the surface like that, no pun intended, that I don't think he even needs to include in his thesis half the time, because he's got so much to offer when it comes to looking back, in time, looking for this lost civilization that is clear. There are signs everywhere that it's there, and he doesn't, give credit to alien technology or anything like that. He's also saying, no, this is us. Like, it's us. We have collective amnesia when it comes to the history of our own species. and we need to wake up and look into this, and we need to dig deeper. Not only dig deeper,
that's kind of how religions are started, where we're ascribing things we don't understand to supernatural forces. That's another example of that. So Giorgio is starting his own religion. Now, Dirk Bonesteel says, Giorgio makes us look dumb by saying aliens to everything. Hard to talk to people that believe the guy. I know about producers, but he just keeps doing it. Well, I know, actually, I've spent quite a bit of time with some of the production crew. I've been in conversations actually where Giorgio is working with production. In fact, there was an episode I was in where Giorgio was like, got a little upset. He's like, no, we're not going to talk about that again. So Giorgio actually does have quite a bit of pull. So he's not that influenced by producers. It's
he
kind
is
of
the producer, I thought. Isn't he?
Is one of the producers. He's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he is one of the producers. So he does have a lot of say in what they do. In fact, like I've been interviewed for the show. They've used our material from Open Minds in the show and at the Congress. And
Right.
I usually don't in fact, I was on the Chilean episode from this last season, but my stuff doesn't usually get used a whole lot. The producers love it, and I get along with the producers. But of course, me being more skeptical,
Right.
I'm not totally aboard with the alien theory. I'm not an ancient alien theorist. So, I'm usually saying, well,
Yeah.
and kind of not on board with the alien thing. So they don't always use that much of me, which I'm fine with, because I'd rather, share what I've found or believe than try to tell them what they want to hear so I can get on
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah.
So here's a topic someone brought up that I know is one of your favorite, is cargo cults. Ad Astra says, I do think we're probably a cargo cult. What do you think of that?
What? I mean, we as in what?
Humans?
Christianity? Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the whole concept of a cargo cult is a very human reaction to forces you don't understand, and you're trying to recognize patterns in and recreate the events or whatever. I mean, like seeing cargo for those who don't know what a cargo cult is, although I think your audience probably does. During the Second World War in the Pacific Islands, Japan and our doughboys of the United States were battling over these islands, and each one would win an island, lose an island, and every time the natives on these islands would witness these soldiers and what was going on. And what they saw from their point of view is, soldiers were there, they would march around, they were doing these specific things, marching around, they built towers, communication towers or whatnot, runways for their planes to land and take off from. And after seeing all this stuff put into place, boxes would fall from the sky by parachute, cargo. They would get stuff. They would get motorcycles and guns or food, lots of food. And a lot of it was shared with the natives. And in fact, their god, or one of their gods, is John Frum. To this day, cargo cults still exist on some of these islands, though dying out. They do still exist, and they still worship John Frum. And we theorize that the name comes from a GI introducing himself to one of the natives as, "Hey, I'm John from New York. I'm John from New Jersey. I'm John from." He goes, "Probably I'm John from," and before he could finish his sentence, someone got the soldier's attention, and he had to walk away from that conversation. So the native heard John Frum. So they worship John Frum, who eventually left and said, "Hey, Uncle Sam's going to take care of you. We'll be back someday," yada, yada. Who knows what he said, but he was passing out chocolate and food and whatever else. And they left. And so now the natives, they try to recreate, they want cargo. So they build fake runways, fake towers, fake guns. They do the marches. They wear USA shirts, military garb that they've made themselves, in an effort to get cargo to drop from the sky from their god John Frum. And again, they just misinterpreted all of this, and that's what mankind always does. We were always trying to get it right, but more often than not, we get it wrong when not enough information is there. And so, yeah, of course, our religions were born out of this. A lot of these religions that we still follow today were born before science and technology. You know, things that we can now explain. So those religions are outdated. They no longer serve a purpose in that way, but they're still perpetuated in an effort to control, the masses and whatnot. But that's part of it. I mean, they do good things too, but they also, but you got to really look into them. There's lots of ways of doing good things. And the biggest fear is if with a world without religion, people are going to kill each other, which I find a little scary that people think that if you didn't have religion, you want to kill people. Also, I feel like a lot of the religious folks are living for the next life, where if you take that out of the equation, maybe we'd be better to each other knowing that we only get one chance at this. I don't know.
People need to listen to Yoda. Your mind is always in the future, not here, not now.
Be here now.
Like Yoda says. He said something like that to Luke at some point.
But yeah, so that's the cliff notes of a cargo cult. And so, yeah, I think it's very interesting to watch. And we can learn a lot about our own society and religions and how they started by looking into these cargo cults.
So Stacy's from Phoenix MUFON, who I think you mentioned earlier. I can't remember why, but it wasn't a bad thing, Stacy. Just joined us. But Adastra, who brought up the cargo cults, he says there's a tribe that worships Prince Philip. That's kind of interesting. I wonder why. I know. Do you know where that is? Is it India?
No. It's off of Papua New Guinea, I think.
Huh. Why Prince Philip? Do you know?
Well, it's the same thing. It's a cargo cult. It's like LBJ LBJ is also who was being worshipped at one time because he was king of the USA. Oh. In fact, when they wanted, I think it was LBJ, they wanted, or maybe it was Roosevelt, they wanted to come to the island. They were going to, I don't know. They were waiting for him. He was supposed to arrive. And so there was this prediction that he was going to arrive in a plane and yada, yada. So everyone showed up on the island for this, paranormal event that never happened for some reason or another. But yeah, it's cargo cults are fascinating. They really are. I suggest everyone do a little research on them, dig into them. A lot of fun. But again, a lot to be learned from them.
Adastra, he's agreeing with you. It's Papua New Guinea. But I guess, what did you mean by we are a cargo cult? I guess perhaps the idea that perhaps we're witnessing technologies we don't understand from elsewhere, and then creating culture religions around that. I don't know if that happens or not.
That fits the ancient alien theory. Yeah. Because that's what they're thinking people are misunderstanding. See, my problem with ancient aliens is they're looking at these past events and art and so on and so forth and speculating, but with modern filters. So they're just as guilty as looking at it and misinterpreting what's going on. That's just my belief anyways.
So we've got to follow the data. So Forever Conscious Research Channel is asking you what your thoughts are on star forts. Do you know what that is?
Star forts?
I've never heard of that. I like the idea though. Because I really liked building forts in the living room when I was a kid.
Oh, still.
So a star fort, that feels like a fort on another planet.
Or cool. Or on like the sun. I don't know.
Yeah.
Star fort. Educate us.
So this is another interesting topic around the church, kind of where we are with the church and buildings. Which is kind of interesting is that really the churches they build really cool buildings, interesting shapes and stuff like that. But is there any church? Well, in Asia, they're building more big temples. But in the United States, it seems like just the Mormons are doing that.
They call them temples.
And they are huge
Judaism
structures with temple as well. With steeples that go way in the air. I'm in San Diego, so we have this amazing one here. But
I'd say they're more cathedrals than temples.
But in other towns that I've lived in, Denver and Mesa, Arizona, they have them too.
Right. Yeah. Mormonism is big around here, and it's these poor people are kept in the dark on their own religion. I mean, if you dig, you don't even have to dig too deep, and Mormonism go, whoa. It's like
Yeah.
Scientology. Like, I mean, it's really, we have this like religious gene in us that we have to. I mean, it's so easy for us to be susceptible to these things, and it's like you don't have
That's
to
what
look too
gets
far to
me
go.
weird because I've always wanted to, I've always thought it's important. And this goes back to what you were saying about people saying we would all kill each other if there weren't religions. I completely disagree with that completely, because if you look back historically, it's religions that caused a lot of wars. And there's not this faith in that we have our own, kind of guide, moral guide inside of us. And maybe not everybody does. So maybe people like me who don't ascribe to any particular religion don't understand that there are some people that don't have a moral compass. But I think that we do. And I've always felt it kind of sad that all of our best structures, our coolest, buildings and everything are churches. And that, a lot of the charitable things that happen are through churches. And I've always thought it important. And there is a human, secular humanitarian organization, but I think that kind of thing needs to be bigger, where it's kind of like a celebration of humans, that we appreciate each other and we want to help
Peace
each other.
Corps, Habitat for Humanity. I mean, like, no, I think it's very natural. You look at children. Children aren't walking around like, I mean, they befriend anybody. Skin color doesn't matter. Language doesn't matter. Kids will play with each other. I mean, I think it's a very inherent in us that we are kind to each other. We will be kind to each other. You don't need religion to teach for a moral compass at all. You don't. I mean,
so and
wait,
the
what's this?
forever conscious guy? Yeah, he talked
Yes.
about what a star fort is, but
They are
I'm
all over
still
the
just
world.
as confused.
What was they are built again with needlepoint precision.
So he says they are all over the world. The star forts, they are built again with needlepoint precision. I've even ran across a document on archive with what seems to be a construction plan. They are all misdated. Yeah, I really don't know much about that. You probably, I don't know if you do, but I'm not sure. So I'd need more information to know about that.
Yeah, I will. I'll get back to you next week on our next episode when it comes to. I'm actually going to write that down right now. Starfort.
Adastra
The
said,
next band.
Yeah. Adastra says, let's not forget that feudalism also creates conflict. Totally. There's a lot of course, tribal type of, like Stanton Friedman used to always put it, we're humanity's obsessed with tribal warfare. So why would aliens want anything to do with us?
Exactly. And when you look around, that's all we are. We're tribes. We're, and the problem with that is, I mean, again, it's outdated and it's obsolete within us. We kind of need an upgrade up here, but that's how we function tribally. And tribes typically, historically, consisted of about 30 to 60 people. And that's about the size that you can work with. Anything bigger, and it just gets chaotic. And you can see this again expressed in modern ways on, like, in social media, on Facebook. If you're belong to any different groups, there's constantly a new group being started by someone who got in an argument with a person in the last group, and all these different factions and so on. So we're all about tribes. Our teams, we have favorite teams. We grew up in a town where we're supposed to love the team that, from your high school, or you have a favorite
even get in fights. People have died over fights.
Yeah. So you have your
team.
favorite team, you have your favorite color, you have your favorite politician, you have your part. You got to pick your party. It's going to be right or left. I mean, like, we really just, this way of thinking is so black and white, and it only holds us back when it comes to, mental evolution, I think, at the end of the day.
I just had another realization too, that what's interesting about, this ingrained need for us to kind of be so tribal is so fundamental and so influential inside of us, that we build these beautiful monuments. The one thing that we build these amazing structures and monuments are for our tribes, not necessarily for more positive reasons, but for our tribes.
Yeah, to celebrate our tribe, or to celebrate.
Getting back to the topic,
to blow minds of the other tribes, like, oh, their giant, bobo tree is bigger than my bobo tree, and, like, I mean, clearly their god is stronger than mine. I don't know. I have no idea. They're in Africa,
but right, yeah. And it's kind of this big strength type of thing, or at least, how powerful and great we are. Yeah, I was kind of going to get to the battle kind of warrior tribe type of thing, but that happens as well. I'm not sure if I can necessarily. I was kind of thinking, are some of these structures, these religious structures, about showing their power to other groups, that, but also to themselves too, to show their people, to keep with us because we're big and strong, and you're going to be safe
It's
if
a little
you
of both.
continue with us.
I think it's done for recruiting purposes as well as for keep your people in a state of awe,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you're going to win converts.
So Adastra agrees with you 100%. That's kind of interesting.
Oh, thank you. I'm flattered. That's kind of interesting. This is not a competition, though I am starting a tribe. Adastra, if you want to join.
And then Dirk says, at a glance, I see forts from roughly 1500s through 1700s and a lot of Photoshop. Milt says, yep, now tribes are tearing down statues. That I don't agree with. I think that I believe the opposite. I believe that the tearing down of statues that we're doing right now is more of a challenge to these tribes that,
it's a correction. It's a correction.
It's a correction. Exactly.
It's like science. Like, again, you can't have your mind set on one way. In science, like, there's always new answers to old questions and so on and so forth. And you can say you were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Science gets it wrong a lot, and that's a good thing. That's how it works. And so it's the same thing with like history. Like, yeah, and if you look at when a lot of these statues were erected, look what was going on historically in that timeline. And then why was that put up? I mean, again, we are looking at it now through modern filters and seeing it as this one black and white event. There's a lot going on there, and we're just making corrections. Some people are overcorrecting, but the thing is, we're not taking away history. We're not rewriting history. We're just not celebrating bad guys anymore. That doesn't change the history. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't celebrate,
mm-hmm.
And again, I think a lot of these were put up at times where different things were going on in the country at that time, and this was done in protest to what was going on. But we don't know that. But if you look back at the different dates when these were going on and erected, it'll give you a little more insight into that. But again, so that's one tribe taking them down, and there's another tribe putting them up. So I mean, this goes back to the whole tribalism. We can't get away from that. We have.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, Adastra saying the British, French, and Spanish empires have a lot to answer for, and that's a good point because a lot of current tribal warfare, even the Middle East, is due to that period of imperialism, and now kind of dealing with the fallout, and that's left over.
Sure.
Vietnam was part of that, with the French colony. And colonialism. So that's a really good point too, is that we're still dealing with the fallout from some of these. Dirk says the Dutch, that's kind of an uncovered story. The Dutch, and when we get to Hong Kong right now, that all stems from the Opium Wars, which was driven by the Dutch. Yeah. So Hong Kong got its sovereignty because essentially China said, hey, we don't want you Dutch and you Europeans giving our people opium anymore, selling them opium. Then they said, no, you don't have that choice. We're going to come in and invade, take over Hong Kong if you don't keep taking our opium. So they said, okay. They had to acquiesce, which in turn later, turned into like the cultural wars that we had when China turned communist. They were like, look, we have to fight against this imperialistic Westerners who tried to do all this bad stuff to us. So nobody's innocent. No. And all of this drives modern conflict today.
We're being controlled by the grave. Is if you really want to get down to it, that's we're still being controlled by the grave, by these dead ideologies, or dead people's ideologies, and so on and so forth. And when you go look at the Middle East too, that's all born out of religion. Something that's supposed to be bringing people together. Again, tribalism.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary because these are the people that have the buttons at their fingertips. Like, I mean, we rely on.
But I think they bumble through it just as much as anybody else, because even the tribal leaders often meet a pretty awful end. Even Prince Philip was blown up by Irish, by the IRA.
Right.
You know, a lot of these guys get their heads chopped off, or
Live by the
they
sword,
get,
die by the sword.
yeah, exactly. So it's just humans bumbling through existence as always, I guess.
They are, but they're screwing it up for the rest of us that are. It's like, you know, it's like I can't travel to certain parts of the world because of religion at the end of the day.
Mhm. Right.
And
Right.
that sucks because I'm not
Yeah.
religious. You know, I mean, like,
Mhm.
I don't want to play this game, but I'm still involved in it thanks to idiocracy.
Right. So I guess this all comes to, we have these wonderful churches, you know, historic churches and temples and everything. Um, that obviously, even we've even touched into some of them built by technologies that perhaps have been lost over time. So I think that begs the question is that we feel as though we're much more advanced and enlightened in the modern day. We certainly have technologies that are greater than, well, for the most part, we believe greater than we've
That we
ever
know
had
of, yes.
before. There's evidence of that, I think. Maybe we lost some technologies, but we definitely have incredible technology and ability to manipulate our environment, our natural environment today, for better or worse. You know, we're destroying it, really.
Yeah.
So have we learned anything over these
No.
years? Are we that much better, you think?
Not at all. Look at the world around you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like people are still making babies. Like there's so much rum and everything. I mean, it's like we have all this knowledge before us, and we just throw it out the window. You know what I mean? Like we are totally destroying the planet. And I know that's a political thing now to say that, but I mean, when I say it, there's nothing political about it. It's just what we're doing. We're behaving like uneducated children. I mean, like they're just, God let them out of Eden, and here they go, just running rampant. When we're smarter than that, we're better than that. And I just wish we could live up to that ideal. But every day I'm more and more disappointed with mankind. And I know that we're better than that. We just got to get ourselves out of this mess that we're in. And it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be very hard, but it comes down to education at the end of the day. And I think this show's part of that. So, I mean, folks, I'm not getting down on churches and cathedrals. I think they're fascinating, and I think they all have a story to tell. And if you like history and the mystery, churches can be that also. It doesn't have to also be, you know, a refuge for the meek and the poor and the religious types. There's also stories being told that these people are unaware of. And that's what this book is all about, How to Read Churches, by Dennis R. McNamara. And again, it's a guide, but if you travel to different cathedrals or you travel a lot in Europe, especially, this is a great book to bring with you, because the stories that you will get from some of these places is often the opposite of what you would expect. And so very interesting stuff.
I would say, you know, since I am a silver lining guy for the part, do get in your questions if you have any, because we're about to end, I think. But is that even if you are a secular person, you can definitely, and I'm sure you do too, that's probably why you brought up this book, you can definitely appreciate the majesty, the art, the work,
magic,
the science, the magic, the artistry that goes into building these buildings, that, you know, because they are phenomenal.
That's a testament to man, like it really is.
Every human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So last
say
round
testament to man. Fran's going to hear you, and she's going to come smack you in the back.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, to people.
That's about it. Just people making some comments. Forever Conscious Research is saying, look into these star forts. And Ad Astra made a great point. Some food for thought: a fully glaciated planet would destroy most of what we see with a mile of deep wall ice. That's interesting. And, you know, there was a really interesting show also recently that was about what would happen if humans were gone. Like, how quickly would nature take over?
Really fast.
It's really fast. Within a couple of weeks, everything's full of weeds and grass, and very quickly it's all kind of consumed.
I mean, did you see the photos when we were doing the lockdowns originally back in April? Like within a month, like the water running in Venice was clear again. Like, I mean, like As George
That's
Carlin,
here too. The water out in
What?
San Diego got so much clearer right at my beach.
Yeah.
It's like much more clear still.
If the world wanted to get, if the earth wanted to get rid of us, it would shake us off like a bad case of fleas, to quote George Carlin. And again,
Yeah.
I think it would heal itself like that. But I mean, but with that knowledge in mind, and do we learn from this what we just learned from the lockdown? Just a month of pulling back a little, the water's running clear again. Are we going to take anything away from that? No, we're just ready to get back out there and stick our feet back in the water.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to wrap up, these are some really important observations that we've made here. I think that we have made some progress for humanity just on the show alone.
Pretty much. Yeah. This show is
talking and
we're
thinking
like the
about
spearhead.
We're the spearhead for the salvation of humanity. Sounds like a religious statement right there. So
I just want to get the vote.
You. Thank
Thanks
you,
for tuning in, folks.
Brother Smythe.
Next week, we'll be looking at The Book of the Damned.
Ooh, one of the best books ever written, it says.
Yeah, this is a classic, folks.
We're getting 40 in.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it comes from. You just spoiled it, man.
Oh, sorry.
Take care, folks, and thanks for tuning in.
Yep, thanks, everybody. Adios, and you guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Let's play one of those cool videos. Where do I got one? Here's one.